All right, we'll call the regular meeting of September 8th, 2009 to order. Mr. Garber, do you have anything to report from closed session?
No, Mr. President.
Okay, I'll ask the board to join me up front for service awards.
Okay, members of the public, Mr. President, members, it's my pleasure to announce this first service award, the Certificate of Recognition and Service Pin Replica of the District Emblem are presented to Hector Martinez Peralta for 10 years of loyal and faithful service to the Imperial Irrigation District.
All duck.
We're good.
That's good. That's good? Hey.
All right, 1, 2, 3. And we're going to take 2. Hang on. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. And you bet.
Oh, we do. Hector?
With 10 years of service, John L. Ryan, Customer Service Project Inspector. I'm moving. Yes, of course I do. Oh, you do. And with 20 years of service, Ruben M. Haurigi, Customer Service Project Inspector. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, this is the time that we reserve for public comments. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I hope you had a good holiday. My name's Rusty Jordan. I'm from Brawley. And the drive here is just a little longer from my house than it is Del Centro, but I've never been here. I'm following the QSA and with some interest. And I'm concerned about the possible conflicts of some of the people that work for you. And I know you've been harangued by a cousin of mine about 700 forms and our attorneys. And I agree, it's like if they're not conflicted, it'd be very simple to have the forms filled out, and then we'd know that there wasn't a conflict, and we could not suspect the worst. But we think they might be. The other issue is the Salton Sea, which is a real big issue. I get these things from the court, and the state of California, and I'll give you a copy, said in the last round of the court, said there is no obligation for anyone to do anything to restore the Salton Sea. No obligation under statute, case law, contract, including the JPA agreement and any of the other QSA agreements. So restoration is not an issue here, and therefore there should be no discovery on that point. I make that available to you. And that may have been the position of the state all along, but Metropolitan Water District, as recently as 2009 in a bond issue, in their disclosure to the bond issue said A complicating factor in completing the QSA was the fate of the Salton Sea, the appropriate mitigation for impacts to the Salton Sea, and for the IID SDCWA transfer, and the larger issue of Salton Sea restoration was addressed by state legislation implementing the QSA. In passing the legislation, the legislature committed the state to undertake restoration of the Salton Sea ecosystem. So we have the Metropolitan coming down very recently saying that that the restoration of the Salton Sea was a responsibility of the state. We have the state saying that they don't believe it. And I thought a very honorable guy who I didn't always agree with, but I thought he was a very good guy, Lloyd Allen, wrote on October 29th, 2003, part of a letter that was, I'm sure as most of your letters are reviewed by council, this probably was. As part of the QSA arrangement, the state is committed to undertake the restoration of the Salton Sea, except for a fixed amount dedicated to the IID San Diego and Coachella. Recently enacted state legislation provides that any future state actions to restore the Salton Sea will be the sole responsibility of the state. That's the issue that's before the court. There's another issue which is interesting. The board, which Stella Mendoza, I believe, was the only one that voted on it, that's still here, voted on October 2nd, 2003, on a JPA agreement, a bunch of agreements to pass this QSA. And as I remember, since I sat through those, Bruce Kuhn was on the board, and the first time it came before the board, Bruce Kuhn voted no. And the reason he voted no is he was unsure of the protection of the QSA for the Salton Sea. And he said, I want to have this, I want to eliminate our exposure to fixing the Salton Sea. And so then he participated in some talks, and other people talked, and some time went on, and he came back with a fix that he thought was okay, and he voted for the QSA on October 2nd, 2003. Between October 2nd, 2003, when the board voted to okay the QSA, and October 10th, 2003, when Lloyd Allen signed the QSA, the critical part about the state's guarantee of funding for the Salton Sea changed, and it was in part because of this email sent out by the lawyer for the state, in which they said, we don't think this is the deal we made. And I'll leave you a copy of that if you haven't seen that. So that in part is one of the reasons we want to see these 700 forms filled out. First of all, if they fill them out erroneously, you won't, but we will prosecute them any way we can. Was the board had no meeting between the 2nd of October and the 10th of October. There was no public notification between the 2nd and the 10th of October. The language materially changed in the QSA during that period of time. There were things that were not available for the public to review and were not available for the board to review at that time. If you look at this, you have a real exposure that the QSA will get blown up. So now, what to do? The person that is in control of that issue is not really our group, it's Melissa McKeith and her group. Make a deal with them and make it go away. But that isn't looking out for the interests of the public. Ultimately, what you have to do, I think is going to happen, the state won't write a check for $5 billion or $3 billion or whatever it is. The number they came up with was way overblown. The farmers spent millions of dollars to figure out a way to do it. We came up with $1.2 billion or something like that to solve it. Paying prevailing wage and putting people in the valley and both valleys to work. The thing to do is to make another QSA and charge the water at a price high enough to do the work. Instead of having the state subsidize it because they can't do it, have the people going to benefit from the water pay the real cost of the water. If the water costs $600 an acre foot, let them pay $600 an acre foot and fix the sea, because the most important thing for us is the health of the people that live here. And if we don't protect the Salton Sea and we let the dust storms blow, you're not doing that job, and we're trying to help you get that job done. Thank you for your time. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
And that's for you.
Good afternoon. My name is Walter Holtz from Imperial. And I want to talk a little bit about putting some of the water from the underrun into the Salton Sea. Not as a permanent deal, but temporary until we can really figure out how to arrange this transfer so there will be more water in the sea to protect the environment and stop things like incidents of human health problems like asthma and things like that. So Mr. Sanchez had mentioned that he didn't think that was a beneficial use. So went and did some studying on it, and it appears that in the 2003 and the 417 process, the federal government was trying to cut way back on the water being delivered in Imperial Valley, and it found the answer to the IID's to the question here as to the beneficial use in the IID's record there in the QSA administrative record. And a set of documents that the IID had for the 417, their administrative record. On May 28th of 03, Clifford Lee, IID's co-counsel in QSA lawsuits, filed comments for the state in the 417 process. On page 19 of the comments, Mr. Lee told the court that California did not object to water flowing to the sea. He said reasonable beneficial use under California law includes the use of water for in-stream and other environmental purposes. Mr. Lee said the Water Code section 1243 allowed the use of water for recreation and preservation and enhancement of fish and wildlife resources is a beneficial use of water. In determining the amount of water available for appropriation for other beneficial uses, the board shall take into account whether it is in the public interest, the amounts of water required for recreation and preservation and enhancement of fish and wildlife resources. Then in footnotes on page 24, Mr. Lee explained the federal law. The law of the river said, delivery of Colorado River water for the benefit of environmental values in the Salton Sea and IID's drainage system is fully consistent with the Boulder Canyon Project Act and the law of the river. 1964 Supreme Court decree in Arizona versus California authorizes delivery of specific quantities of Colorado River water out of the lower basin state's allotment for Havasu Lake National Wildlife Refuge and Imperial National Wildlife Refuge. If Colorado River water can be dedicated to environmental purposes at these refuges, then Colorado River water can similarly be used for incidental environmental benefits of the Salton Sea and the district's drainage system. And then Mr. Osias, in the same matter, filed IID's objection to the 417 determinations on August 3rd of 03. He told the court that California had informed the regional director that he must apply state law and look at the environmental factors, stating state law standards of reasonable and beneficial use require consideration of recreation, fish and wildlife, and other environmental values as beneficial use of water. Mr. Osias went on to say, existing environmental reports document that reduced diversions and or implementation of water conservation measures by the IID will have significant effects on the biological resources in and around the lower Colorado River, biological resources, and water quality in the IID drains in the Salton Sea, and potential impacts on air quality. And finally, on page 71 of the IID's objections, Mr. Osias said, the Joint Bureau IID Coachella Valley Water Team stated that the portion of the non-beneficial uses that are reasonable for an agricultural system can depend on many factors, including considerations beyond agricultural production, such as environmental issues. It is highly unlikely that the federal and the state wildlife agencies will ignore adverse effects on biological resources in the Colorado River, IID's drains, and the Salton Sea, as well as risks to air quality. The federal government, state of California, and IID's own attorney, Mr. Asias, all agreed that the law tells you that putting water into the Salton Sea is a beneficial use. And so I think it's pretty clear that the district can put some water in the Salton Sea, and it would be a beneficial use and doesn't have to be allowed to go down to the junior right holders on the river. And I think at least part of that water that would be in our underrun ought to go to the sea at least. I don't say in the long term, but until we can find out how we're going to manage the sea in this transfer, so that in the short term at least we'll have some protection while we're figuring out how to handle it in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Wesley Algren. I'm a director of the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership, and I apologize. I thought I was on the agenda today, but what I plan to do is come down to El Centro in the next month or so and give you a full update. I just wanted, on behalf of the chairs, the executive committee, and the board of the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership, thank you for your engaged support and participation in the last several months with our blueprint. We're going to be rolling that out October 23rd at our annual economic summit here in the Coachella Valley. And it's a regional approach, working with not only the Coachella Valley, but also with Imperial Valley to solving some of the economic problems that we're facing today. So on behalf of the board and the chairs, I wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
Todd Barnsoff, power troubleshooter here in La Quinta. I'd like to give the board an update on what's been going on with the mapping committee. Our last meeting was December of '08. The promised quarterly meetings have been asked for and have not been held. A list of stuff that we wanted to discuss in the June meeting was actually provided to my new supervisor, Mr. Dickerson. The meeting has never come about. It's now September, and I've heard no plans for a mapping meeting this month. I was actually told by Mr. Dickerson that Mr. Solis said there will be no mapping meetings. We still have some concerns with the maps up here. I don't know what it's like down south, but we do have some concerns. The other thing I wanted to mention is when I got here at IID, our department had 3 clerical people, 10 troubleshooters, and 1 foreman. Now we have 2 foremen, a superintendent, 8 troubleshooters, and 1 clerical person. What direction are we going here? I'd really like to know, because there's some major changes happening in our department, and you got the biggest share of your troubleshooters looking to get out. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to board comments. Director Abadi, you want to go first?
I just to follow up on some of the comments of Mr. Martzloff. I remember about a year ago, does anybody know the completion on the GIS on the, we were told that the valley was 90 or 99% completed on the GIS location and about 50% here about a year ago. Do you know where, have we improved it from that point, or is there an actual completion date to the GIS mapping?
We don't, Mr. Abadi, we don't have anybody here that, you don't know, Ed, do you? We'll find out. We'll find out.
And but until then, you continue to work on your hard copies that you have located at your office here. And is that posing?
We do have the laptops in our trucks now and are able to download the digital copies, but we don't have live access yet.
Okay, I mean, is that posing a safety issue? Because those have been your main issues, is not having information, going out to the site, you don't have all the accurate information.
And not all the information is getting back. The process needs to be tweaked some, but nobody wants to discuss it with us.
But ask the general manager to look into that, please.
Yes, sir.
I would just ask Dr. Brady that you look into the concerns voiced by the gentleman and report back to the board.
Yes.
No comments.
No, I just want to say that on the power outage that happened over the weekend, I know many areas of the valley lost power, and Ocotillo was out until Sunday, just up to 1 o'clock. And so I just want to say that I had a lot of phone calls and then a lot of compliments on people getting the power back. And even out at Ocotillo, they weren't expected to get the power till 5. And I know Irby was out there, and it's kind of funny. Lauren Holmes called Mrs. Richardson. She calls me all the time and told her the power would be on at 1 o'clock, and it came on at 12:57, so 3 minutes ahead of schedule. But they did a very good job, and I know it was a tough deal, but it shows that the ID crews can get out and get the job done when it's necessary.
Okay, any comments from the general manager?
Just one, I completed my brown bag sessions with the 9 meetings I had. In fact, Todd and his bunch gave me a lot of great information, and we are following up on some very specific concerns they had. What will happen now, we have a list of some 200 and some issues, and we're working through that. We've taken care of some of them, and what I'll be doing now is having those same kind of sessions, but with my supervisors and managers. First with supervisors and superintendents, and then with with managers. So looking forward to working those issues with the management team.
Okay, legal counsel?
No, sir, no comments.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to consent agenda.
Information agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote.
We can go to the consent
calendar. Well, I made notes all through it, so that's why. All right, we'll go to energy, general manager.
Just to pass on a little bit more information on those outages, we had numerous incidences throughout the district, and numerous activities by the crew working very long hours to clear up the issues, still cleaning up. Total number of customers affected by the outages, momentary outages, was 893. Total number of customers affected by sustained outages was 3,501. The longest outage duration was 21 hours, where 22 customers in at the San Felipe substation circuit, due to crews unable to get access to the affected area. That's kind of all the information I have, other than reports from the dispatcher, which I don't think would be of interest to you. But I think your comments about the crews are really showing their qualities, and getting out and attending to emergencies is well taken.
Okay, we'll move to number 2, amendment to service agreement with Richard Feria.
And Sabrina Barber has the report.
Just to provide you with some background information, we actually came before you, well, I didn't, but the compliance section came before you in February of 2009 with amendment number 7, and that was also approved in February. That particular amendment increased the service agreement in the amount of $187,918. The majority of those funds were expended by the end of July of this year. I've provided on your attachment an overview of the consulting services, just to kind of give you an idea of where those funds were spent. 76% of the previous service agreement amendment was spent on on-site and travel. That's any consulting done here in the Imperial Valley. It includes meetings with a working group, board meetings, standard reviews, and comments on evidence and supporting documentation. 11% was spent off-site. That's any consulting work that Mr. Ferreira does from his office in Granite Bay. That typically includes document reviews, conference calls, things of that nature. 8% was spent at CUG meetings and WCIF meetings. Those are the compliance user group meetings, held their WEC functions. And the WICIF is the Western Interconnection Forum Group. Those are actually agency meetings for all the other organizations or peer groups within the WEC region. Those are held prior to the compliance user group meetings, and they also follow, and those are held quarterly. And then open mic is a WEC conference call that's held monthly, and also 5% was spent on cooperative efforts. Those typically consist of, we recently visited SMUD and WAPA just to review how their organization is set up as far as handling compliance and how they handle their standard reviews and compile their evidence. We also attended a WEC auditor training in Modesto, and that was partly coordinated by Mr. Ferreira. So that's where those previous funds were spent from January through July of 2009. I wanted to go over some of our proposed areas of reduction in support of this amendment number 8. One of the areas that we plan to find some cost savings is to reduce Mr. Ferreira's travel to El Centro by 50%. We're anticipating an estimated savings of $50,000. And if you did the math, you'd see that that doesn't exactly pencil out. But what we're planning on doing is reducing his travel, the frequency of his trips from twice a month to once a month, but including a day or two to increase the length of stay for each of those. So that would save on our travel expenses, time and travel, and business expenses. We anticipate eliminating the attendance at the CUG and WICIF meetings. That's an estimated savings of $14,000. Prior, when the previous contracts were put together, we did not have a compliance officer at that time, so now I will be attending the CUG meetings and the WICIF meetings. We no longer need Mr. Ferreira's representation at those specific meetings, although he will be attending, but he just won't be attending on behalf of the IID. We anticipate reducing the co-op efforts by 35%, an estimated savings of $3,500. Again, that's going to be something that staff will be picking up. We're working with APS and SRP, Salt River Project, trying to coordinate and get a feel for what they're doing in their offices, stuff that was originally coordinated or previously coordinated by Mr. Ferreira in the absence of compliance office staff. Also eliminating the attendance of the WEC open mic call. That would be another function that would be taken over by staff. So we have a total estimated savings of $68,000 based on the fact that we now have additional staff within the compliance section. We have myself as well as a compliance administrator now and 2 compliance coordinator positions that will assume these functions. And we plan on using Mr. Ferreira, on more higher level consulting on our internal compliance program, and also to assist us in the mock audit that we have anticipated, we estimate that will be held towards the end of October of this year. So unless you have any questions.
Yeah, well, that was my concern, Ms. Margaret, but I think you answered it. You'll be picking up those functions which are being cut, Mr. Ferreira.
Right.
Okay, with that said, I think Mr. Ferreira brings in a very knowledgeable in this area and help preparing us and going into our mock audits. He's been a tremendous help in this area where we have made great improvements thanks to Sabrina and her crew and the input from the rest of the gang over there. So with that, I move to approve the service agreement with Richard Ferreira for $125,000, not to exceed the amount of $937,000.
This is for information only.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, this is for information.
All right. No, I'm not going to be here next one. I'm not going to be here.
Okay, you'll bring this back to us in the next board meeting for approval?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I just want to remind the board, you already know this, but you could take, if you chose to take action, you can take action.
There's no policy that says you can't.
Not a problem with that. If you want to pass it now, pass it.
Make your motion.
You want to do it anyway?
Yeah, we
I wanna
can
bring
do
it
that.
back.
That's fine.
You
Okay.
can do it now.
Make a motion, Mike, we'll pass it.
Want to repeat the motion?
No, just say
We have it.
Okay.
Do we have-
second.
Second it then.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Is there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All right, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
I apologize for President Hanks. I was thinking next week because I may not be here due to my schedule. So that's good.
Okay,
My
thank
calendar for next up.
All right, we'll move to item number 3, work authorization, major work authorization, P6635.
Good afternoon. I want to apologize to Sabrina for trying to cut in front of her.
She didn't hesitate to knock you off.
I'm here to, for information, I'm here to present the El Centro Unit 2-2 major turbine generator overhaul. El Centro Unit 2-2 has been in service since 1993, and in 2003 we did a hot gas path inspection, which is substantially less of a work effort than a major inspection or major overhaul. The unit had about 21,000 operating hours at the time, and we noted during that hot gas path overhaul both some cracking and deflection in the stationary and rotating blades on the gas turbine. As of a couple of weeks ago, the Unit 2-2 had 47,575 operating hours. This slide is right out of the GE maintenance manual, and it presents the recommended intervals for both the hot gas path and major inspections for that specific unit, depending on its service duty and the fuel it's burning. And the only line that anybody here needs to pay attention to is the highlighted line. And if you go to the far right-hand column, in thousands of hours, that's the recommended number of hours that GE, I guess, recommends the major inspections to be performed at. So that 48 is actually 48,000 hours. The justification, GE advises that a major overhaul be performed at 48,000 hour intervals. We expect at the end of the operating run this year for Unit 2, our Unit 2-2 will have in excess of 48,000 hours. A major turbine failure, if we didn't do the inspection, a major turbine failure would be substantially more costly than the routine overhaul, just because if a piece comes loose while that unit's rotating at 36,000 3,600 RPM, it's going to do collateral damage to serviceable parts. Cost-benefit analysis was done, and we came up with 2 years of a simple payback for the investment in a major Unit 2-2 major overhaul. The estimated cost for this overhaul is $5,092,735, and that's also the requested authorization of the MWA. A high-level schedule is after approval, we would order parts in October of this year. We're scheduled to start that overhaul in December of this year, and we're scheduled to have it back in service in April of 2010. That's the project team, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
I have a question, but it's in regard to the cooling tower for unit number 4.
Yes.
As you're aware, it needs considerable work to make it safe.
Well, we replaced the cooling tower on El Centro Unit 2.
Yeah, that you rebuilt the cooling tower in Unit 2.
Yes, we've put budget items in that have been cut out, and we prioritize.
I understand that, Hendrik, but safety is one of my biggest concerns, and it's been brought to my attention that the cooling tower for unit number 4 is not safe.
Okay.
And could you look into that, please?
I will. One note on that is for this 2010, we've put money in the budget, and I believe it's still in the 2010 budget, to start the engineering work to ultimately go out to bids. So there's money in the budget to start the process.
So how
but I
long
will look into.
How long will the process take?
You know, in a routine engineering / construction schedule is going on a cooling tower is probably going to be a year and a half. we could accelerate it. But the engineering and procurement and competitive bid process would take about 6 months.
Could you keep me posted on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Henrik, when you did the inspection in 2003, and you said in your report that you saw some cracks, was anything done there in that 21,000 hour inspection? Because you said you reported seeing cracks or something then.
Yes, and on gas turbines, you're going to have cracks on frame units. What's real important is the orientation of the cracks and the size of the cracks. So on all of our gas turbines, at least our frame units, we have cracks. But it's when you have just the orientation is important and the size of the cracks important. And
So
just
some
over
cracks
time,
are better than other cracks?
yes, and that's why. I mean, it's an engineering evaluation. When we open up for inspection, this go around, the question is going to be on the turbine portion. Are the parts that have cracks, are they going to last until the next hot gas path overhaul? And the hot gas path overhauls are done every 24,000 hours. Now, on the components that just get inspected on the 48,000 hour intervals, we'll look and there'll be a judgment made whether we should replace those parts now, such that, again, we'll have a failure-free 48,000 hours. So I don't know if I answered your question, but again, there are cracks. They've probably gotten bigger. We'll look at the orientation and the size of them and the location, and there'll be an engineering judgment that between IID and the original equipment manufacturer will make a judgment, and either parts will get replaced or we'll make a judgment and say they'll be good for another 24 or 48,000 hours.
I know Unit 2 is probably our more reasonable generated price for power. Is that schedule you have, 4-month schedule, is that a true attainable schedule? And so the portfolio management office keep an eye on this, because if we go 1 month out of that, we're going to be in some really hot months, and that's going to be hard or expensive to make up.
Yeah, project management is fully on board with us on this project, and they're going to assist us, and they're going to be a key part of bringing this thing in on time. It's a very doable schedule. One thing we're trying to do is to do it at the lowest cost approach, and we'll be using our labor, which is somewhat limited. There are other utilities that can do these overhauls quicker, but they have larger crews and they work 2 shifts. So we'll keep an eye on the schedule. If it looks like we're falling behind, we'll either bring in some supplemental resources, or we'll start working overtime, or we'll do what we have to do to bring it in on time.
I'll give you a tough question.
Okay.
It's single source. How are you going to keep a lid on the costs?
The only thing that we're single sourcing, Director Hanks, is the technical direction, taking these units apart and put them back together multiple times. On the other services that we're going to need beyond what our people are able to repair, we're going to Mike Taylor's going to get service agreements with 3 other companies and try to competitively bid that service out. So the only one area that I'm only one area that I'm aware of that we're single sourcing is the technical direction, just because we believe the OEM has insights to that machine that we don't, or a third, another vendor would have.
Okay. Has this gone before the ECAC?
Not yet.
Okay. We'll wait to make a motion whenever you take it before them, okay?
Okay, and I'll check into that cooling tower.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You'll bring it back to us right after ECAC has a chance to review it?
Yes, Director
Okay.
Hanks.
All right, thank you. All right, now we'll move to consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, is there any comments or, well, it's consent.
You don't
now.
comment on a consent agenda, Director.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm gonna vote no on this one. Yeah. Maybe on number 5. Okay. All right, we'll move on to action agenda. Number 8, human resources. Adopt resolution recognizing the IBEW Local 465 as exclusive bargaining representative for rank and file employees.
On June 1st, we received a request from International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 465 to conduct a cross-check election. That is to recognize them without a formal election. We contacted the State Mediation and Conciliation Service, and on July 22nd, they conducted that cross-check election and informed us of the results that IBEW did indeed have a majority support. Majority of the employees in that unit supported the IBEW Local 465 as the exclusive rep. So in keeping with our local rules, we certified those results and posted those for 10 days throughout the district. And this was our first opportunity after the expiration of the posting period to bring to you a resolution. And we're recommending that you adopt the attached resolution that will recognize IBEW Local 465 as the exclusive rep for the rank and file unit.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second the motion. Any comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Somebody want to make that last motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned.
Yeah, just about.